Hello, everyone, and welcome to ImageCon. My name is Sanjay Sarathi, and alongside my guests, Alex Wack and Beckley Mason, we're glad you could join today's session that will explore the highly relevant role video plays in the next generation of visual experiences. Before we get started, one quick administrative note. We will be answering questions after the main part of the panel, so please add your questions to the Q&A section in your player, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. So why this topic? It's no surprise, a secret, that video continues to rise in importance for both B2B and B2C brands as companies understand its value in driving engagement and conversion. There are plenty of statistics on the web as to the impact of video, but one of the more recent ones that jumped out at me is that the number of people who say that video has had a positive ROI on their business has grown from 33% in 2015 to 88% in 2020. So nearly a threefold increase over the past 5 years. So it gives me great pleasure to have Alex from Finalsite and Beckley from Bleacher Report, two market leaders, sharing their experiences and opinions on how video is shaping their markets and what lessons each of you as audience members can take away from their experiences. So with that, let's go on to introductions. Alex, let's start with you. If you can start by telling us a little bit about Finalsite, its mission, and your particular role.
Yeah, so I am the core product manager here at Finalsite. Finalsite provides K through 12 schools with digital communications and marketing tools. So with that, we create custom websites for our schools on top of our proprietary CMS that is built specifically for the needs of schools and the users at schools to manage the content that they need to spread and share with their community and provide kind of internal and external communication tools using that content.
Great. Thank you very much, Alex. And Beckley, if you could do the same and introduce us and tell us a little bit about Bleacher Report and also Playmaker, the studio.
Great. So, thanks for having me, and thanks for those who are tuning in and asking questions. Bleacher Report is a sports media company. We are part of Warner Media, which is a part of AT&T. And Bleacher Report aims to be the voice for the next generation of sports fans. We tell stories through our app, through our website, across social media. And Playmaker, which is the division that I oversee, is our internal brand agency. So we work with all our external partners who are interested in developing content for our platforms. We also do some traditional creative agency work, but almost everything we do is aimed at creating video that will engage a young audience, which is, I think every brand has found the best way to do that is through video and going to where they live on social and the apps and destinations where they frequent.
Great. Thank you, Beckley. So Alex, let's start with you. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how video is typically leveraged by the schools on your platform and the types of benefits they see from using video.
Yeah, definitely. So the biggest use that we find for our schools are helping to convert both our donors, the donors that the schools provide, so alumni that want to provide donations and encouraging them to donate, and then conversions for parents and families to create new opportunities for admissions and admitting students and applications there. So part of that is kind of these inbound marketing tools that we provide, and we find that alumni are much more likely to donate when they see where their donations are going to go, which is best expressed through video, showing the alumni what is happening on campus, how they're educating students, what opportunities they're providing. But then for parents and families who are considering applying to the school, to see really the school community that's out there, look and see, who the other students are that are on campus, what their professors are teaching out there, and really, athletics facilities, some of the learning, artistic facilities, and just getting an idea and a sense for what it would be like for the students to take part and gain an education at that school.
Great, thank you. Beckley, turning to Bleacher Report and sports, obviously, Bleacher Report is one of the best known media brands, and videos, as we know, so critical to the overall sports experience. One of the questions that constantly comes up is whether the increased use of video over the past few years and its many forms has changed how you have thought about your mission and the role that it plays in overall fan engagement and the experience.
Yeah, our brand story, I don't know how much everyone on here knows about Bleacher Report, but when it started, it was really a place where people could go and blog and get their sports takes found. So, going back to the earliest expression of this business, it was around elevating, curating users, not just kind of the big voices or the broadcast experience. And I think that while our business and perspective and our structures and all these things have changed a ton over the ensuing decade, that I think remains a differentiator for us among the large media companies. And that is that we have a property and a brand that is built not just on showing the most elevated version of the game or of the sport, but also in curating and sharing and elevating and giving a platform to everyday people. And I think that is a reflection of the way that people use phones in general now. I think the quality of the camera in your phone years ago would have been thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment, and now everybody's carrying it around. And I think that the expectation for our consumer is that the video they're going to see from us is going to work on that phone and in this context. And what I mean by that is, there's the context of the broadcast. And when I'm watching an NBA game and there is I want it to be widescreen. I want it to be glossy. I want it to be sharp. But there's a user experience that is, I would say, 98% of my experience, which is looking at stuff that my friends and other people shot on their phones. And it doesn't look as polished, but there's a wit and a soul and a cleverness to that our audience has always really responded to. So when we think about our mission, I think we take a very agnostic viewpoint on video production and not saying like this is exactly how everything we do is going to look and is going to feel, but really thinking about the context in which it's going to be viewed. And then the visual language that we need to employ to tell the story the right way.
Great. And it sounds like, it's we see it all the time. I mean, my kids are using their phones to film video sports moments all the time, whether it's their other friends or participating at school, even at an amateur moment. So I can only imagine what this must be like at a global scale, right? And people using it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the really funny kind of tropes of sports videos right now is, or not right now, but over the last few years, is people taking video of someone watching the highlight on a TV. Yeah. And the highlight itself is great, but what we really want is the experience of seeing how it impacts other people. And that dad who flips over the coffee table, or the one who wins the bet and is going bananas, like that person becomes the star of the video. And I think that is a really fascinating part of how video is created and the ubiquity of it is that even within this highlight that costs millions of dollars in terms of equipment and people and the investment in the game and getting the stadium and all that, even within that, the most interesting thing is this individual reaction. And I think that our brand and the way that we sort of embrace that, I think, is a differentiator for us, because we know that the highlight itself is going to be commoditized very quickly. Everyone's going to be able to share it. Everyone's going to be able to get a piece of it. But what is the viewpoint on that feels more connective and feels more relatable? And almost always that is communicated through video.
Yep. Now that's a great point, which is the experience is universal, because cell phones are everywhere, and you all of a sudden have the ability to shape the experience and in the context, as you pointed out, that's most appropriate. Switching gears a little bit, back to you, Alex. We're living in strange times these days with the pandemic, and schools are one market that have had to change quickly to support e-learning. At all stages of the, whether it's K through 12 and even beyond. So can you share maybe some of the ways that in these times schools have evolved their use of video over the past few months, and how you think video will change how schools continue to communicate to their core constituencies?
Yeah, I think that the biggest change that the spring has brought on in our schools is creating much more personal content that really otherwise they wouldn't have thought about in the first place. So for a headmaster at an independent school, or the superintendents at a district would never have thought about recording video themselves. It would have been this expectation that on their website to their communities, they'd have this high value of production, and they would, they'd be concerned about, what am I going to say? How is this going to be perceived? Where now they're able to record themselves, and just like Beckley said, the quality of the video that they can shoot themselves on their camera is much higher. And I think that then brings with it this much more personal experience that can be brought to the community. So rather than a headmaster addressing, or producing this video that really tries to communicate the values of their community, they're now able to demonstrate that by just talking about their community, right? A kind of much more honest conversation that they're having just in front of their phone, right? So they're shooting a address to the community from their backyards, right? Or from their living room. Whereas usually they would be up on a podium in front of, addressing the entire school. And I think it's kind of a much, nicer way to see, these heads of school and districts in their, quote unquote, natural environment, right, where they actually live. And that, I think, is something that is going to, continue to be used going forward, that because schools have been, forced into providing this, much more authentic content in this much more, low, or not low production, but much more homegrown content, that going forward, they understand and are no longer concerned or scared of doing that, but they're really going to start seeing the values of it out there today. I think another, major thing was in the last spring, the news constantly was covering graduations, right? These seniors who had worked all 4 years to finally complete their education, unfortunately, had that completion of their senior year occur during a very strange time. And so having, video, having the ability to honor those students via video is obviously, not the same thing as an in-person graduation, but it's certainly a great way to still honor and provide some type of achievement for those students. So we've seen the news covers all sorts of ways of honoring those students in person, but we have seen schools use really creative ways using video to do that. I think that my favorite story out there is a school that recorded a montage of the seniors, so using their senior year photos and showing each one of the seniors that's graduating, but then having those seniors kind of provide a little bit of bio about them, explain what their most fond memories of high school was. And then the school took and compiled all of these together and had a drive-in, had everybody go to a drive-in movie theater and screened this graduation video for all the seniors and their families to watch in still a socially distanced manner. And then, all the families had the opportunity to, be sent this recording, but it was a really nice way of honoring these graduating seniors in front of, and literally, within the proximity of the communities that they would have been graduating with had there not been the social distancing in place.
Yeah, and I really like your use of the word personal, because I think that really comes into motion in these types of environments. My wife and I were watching our daughter's high school graduation, where everything was done virtually, and one of the biggest comments we made is we get to learn a lot more about the students because they were able to do some really interesting things with the videos than we would sitting in a grandstand, 400 meters away, watching people walk across to pick up their diploma. And we thought it was really quite engaging, actually, even though it was not interactive. It was still engaging. And I think that was one of the things that really came out of that just last weekend. So thank you for that, Alex. Beckley, you had mentioned in your previous conversation around, different types of video production. And we know video production budgets vary greatly in the media market. What trends are you seeing in terms of how video production is being used in the sports media market today?
Yeah, I think the pandemic is an accelerant of a lot of trends. There's probably some stuff that is going to bounce back and some stuff that won't. I think one of the trends that is probably here to stay is that I think there's kind of a very high level of production, your Nike $2 million spot. And then there's more run and gun, kind of shot on phones, GoPros, those sorts of things that are really feel approachable from a production point of view. And then there's sort of like this middle class of productions, and those require a lot of people. They require the video village. They require you to come in proximity with, like, a set is a lot of strangers, and they require the talent to interact with all those people. And I think that the appetite for that type of video is going to shrink for two reasons. One, I think producers and talent are not going to want to take the risk when it isn't a huge brand statement that there's tons of planning around, and kind of it's a really important moment for the talent as well. And then I think because for the last few months, nobody has been making that type of video, and everyone's seeing that if you shoot things on your phone or you shoot things remotely or you have the right idea, maybe there isn't a ton of production value, but the performance is there. So now it's been exposed that, okay, I've been paying this premium for a production that is getting me the same results as something that costs a 10th or a 30th of that. And there's never going to be a replacement of an ad that has LeBron, Serena, I keep going back to Nike, but like they load up their ads with value, and that's why they get shared, and that's why they get passed around for a long time, and they're iconic. But if you aren't going to invest in that way, the ROI on the incremental dollars from sort of run and gun style, especially if you're planning to reach a digital audience, is pretty low. And I think that brands and creative agencies are being exposed to that, which I think will create a certain commoditization of video assets that maybe that's been resisted by the creative industry, but I think will start to be demanded more and more by clients. And so at that point, it'll be really important for creative teams, which I'm a part, to be able to clearly articulate what the value, not just of the production is, but of the thinking, of the insight, of the connection to audience and context. Because the simple, like, hey, we know how to shoot a video with expensive cameras, I don't think is gonna get it done anymore.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think we're seeing it obviously not just with the work you're doing at Bleacher Report, but through things that we're seeing in a variety of even social channels as well that come through, all of our feeds. I'd love to understand a little more, and maybe start with you, Alex. At a software level, at a platform level, what are sorts of things that Finalsite has done, right, to take advantage of some of the trends, not just that Beckley's talked about, but you talked about, to take advantage of videos overall, and to make those personal connections even more engaging?
Yep. We have really focused on trying to remove roadblocks and increase allow the just general community to contribute videos to the schools that are out there. So allow parents and teachers and students to be able to upload videos directly to their websites. For then the directors of communication, let's say, to take those videos and compile them into slideshows or really collections of videos that they can provide onto their websites very easily. So I think that traditionally there had been this use of Google Drive or other services to distribute that information. It was still kind of this looser collection of those videos. But by building into our website these tools that allow those groups of the community to upload that video, and then for the members of the school that are managing what video is distributed through their website to directly pull that content together, I think it has really helped lower those barriers and remove those barriers to provide that community generated content. In addition to that, we have made a lot of changes to our platform to make sure we're able to better support the delivery of that video, which Cloudinary has done a lot to help us improve the efficiency of that and dynamically adjust to whatever platform our visitors might be hitting our websites with, but also making sure that the video players are up to standards, that it's very easy for visitors of the website to understand how to access that video and to play that video in a very convenient way. One of the other things that we've done, and it was really before the world started changing at the beginning of the year, is that we began partnering with services that allowed us to provide streaming video out there to members of the community. So, the big thing is for a lot of our schools, and it's chiefly the parents that are interested in alumni, is the athletics. So a little bit of Beckley with the Bleacher Report, athletics, is driving a lot of the views to their websites. And there are parents, particularly boarding schools, who might not be present for their son's basketball game, their daughter's field hockey game, who still want to be able to watch that. So we have platforms and tools for those parents to remotely live stream those videos, and we're still able to track, the action of those events, whether it's a field hockey field outdoor, a basketball court indoors. But then also, in addition to that, capturing, arts and performances. So be that a concert that the band is putting on, the chorus is putting on, or a musical performance that members of the drama department are putting on as well. So just kind of an overall, building up of the video tools and the accessibility of those video tools for our schools communities.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that. It sounds really, really interesting. And I know schools are going through a lot of different ways, especially in these times, to figure out how to build. It's not just more personal, but also faster engagement with their constituencies.
Yeah, it's so cool also that they can, then have those videos. Like when I was in high school, I had game tapes and I was, trying to get recruited and stuff. And I would send the tapes out and you had to mail the tapes to a guy. He would put it together and I have no idea what happened to those. But that these kids will be able to also, and parents will be able to have those in a digital space, on the cloud, whatever, for the future is so cool.
Yeah, the retention component of it is and the lifetime value of those videos is something that's really interesting. It's an interesting concept in and of itself that we probably could dedicate a whole session to just on that. Beckley, in terms of the advantages of video, are there specific advantages that agencies like yourselves or media companies they may not be as aware of today that you've put into, that you've come to the realization of, that you really understand that video has significant advantages over traditional media that you'd be willing to share?
Sure. Well, I think from a very nuts and bolts perspective, as a media product, video is great because it creates a lot of space for brands to enter into content, whether that's an end card, whether that's a brought to you by, or which is kind of, then this is what we specialize in, whether there's an engagement in the brand and the content itself. And I think that if you think of the idea that your brand or your product, let's say, is going to be shown in some kind of marketing communication, video is how you show exactly how it works. It's how you show someone not just endorsing it, but using it. And I think that there's an enormous power, and it's a simple thought, and I'm sure everyone else has it, but there's a big difference between having Patrick Mahomes, a picture of him on Google's website, and having a video of him saying, "Hello, Google," and using the product. And for us, because a lot of the video that we produce and put out there is, sort of in reporting, news, and commenting, and kind of creating a flow of information, this video goes into that flow as just like you're learning this or being entertained by that. You can learn and be entertained by advertising communication. So I think for us, video's flexibility in terms of not just the creative output, but how the brand shows up in it and what's the right level of kind of high touch for that is a really valuable part of our business, because it allows us to have one team that can fulfill a huge variety of kind of brand needs, whether you're trying to drive consideration, whether you're trying to drive trialing. These are all things that video is flexible enough to support and enable.
Right. Yep. That's very, very true. Before I get back to Beckley and Mason with their sort of final thoughts, just a reminder that you can ask questions in the Q&A section of your player, and we'll answer those questions as soon as we're done. So let's maybe wrap up, Alex and Beckley, by maybe providing the audience with 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you'd give to somebody, whether it's a creative person, an agency, a B2B business, a B2C business on use of video, or potentially how to think about it as they think about their business. So Beckley, maybe we start with you, and then we'll go to Alex.
Yeah, I think the thing I would advocate for is thinking about who's making your videos, and knowing that you can have a really talented staff and a really talented group, but there's doesn't mean that they're expert and native in the video language that you want to use to reach the people you want to use. And I get asked all the time, like, how is Bleacher Report the way it is, and how do you guys come up with this stuff? And it's like, because we give 24-year-olds cameras and give them phones and let them make things the way they want to make them. And I think that there's sort of no substitute for the like lived experience that these creators have. And so I would say, if you want to use video in a really authentic and digital way, give power to young people, people of color who are sort of driving the trends on these platforms, and let them kind of let them cook and let them do their thing, because that will be the way to have the most authentic expression of your brand or your story for that platform, will be to give your story to people who are really setting the trend on that platform.
Great. Alex?
Yeah, I think it comes down to putting, effectively deputizing the members of your community or your business to create that video. So just like kind of Beckley was saying, having that authentic content coming from the members of your community or business that are actually reaching and are targeting the audience that you really want to connect with. I think one of the things we've seen pretty frequently now is, as admissions officers cannot actually directly meet with the students that are coming into their schools, they've had to, and I think it's been a much more effective, manner, create these accepted student videos. So the admissions director actually sends with the acceptance email, this customized personal video saying, thank you, Alex, for coming to and submitting a application to our school. We'd really like to see you. They have some type of background about that student, and they talk about that to really make them feel, that it's not just this machine, right, that's reaching out to the students that are out there, the alumni that are out there, but they're actually personalizing those videos, which is something that you can do as a business, as a school, as an individual, because you do have these tools accessible to you. And in addition to that, even though you might not have at certain times the ability to, run things, do orientation as you normally would, you will learn new ways of using digital technology to provide those same experiences, where you might not necessarily need to have all students on campus to do an orientation, right? There might be limitations of, kids to get on campus that they would have to send kids out there, right? They'd have to fly out there. They would have to come from different countries, drive across the country just to come for a week to get that orientation. And now they can, from their own home, have those same experiences.
No, I really like the theme you brought up around trust, and Beckley too, right? The idea that, video creation, you use the words deputize, Alex, which I really liked, and the idea that it's gone from the hands of a few into the hands of many people, and that allows some of that creative juices to filter their way into your business, into both of your businesses, and that also lends a certain sense of authenticity, I think, to that process as well, which I think is really interesting in two very, very different industries like yourselves. But I think has been instructive to understand. So once again, I just want to, on behalf of the audience listening, thank you both very much, Alex and Beckley, for participating in today's session. I think there were a couple of really interesting themes that came out of it. I think the concept, Beckley, that you talked about around the essentially the ubiquity of cell phones and how that can capture not just the event, but the context of the event. Alex, I really liked how schools on your platform are really thinking about the use of video in terms of creating those personal connections, which are so important both for alumni, for potential students, for existing parents. And then the last theme we sort of mentioned here, which is this notion of trust and enabling a broader community of creators to build and support essentially your mission, and I think that's really powerful. So with that, I think we'll now turn to answering some of the Q&A that's come in, and so I'll take a moment just to read through that and get back to you, Beckley and Alex.